Hi, I'm Vidit Gujrathi. I'm a Grandmaster from India, and today I'm going to analyze one of my games where I won with the black pieces against a low rated player. And I picked this game for two reasons. One, it's not a very famous game, and second, it shows like how if you're a high rated player, you can play against opposition who are low rated than you with the black pieces and try to complicate things to play for a win. So the game began with e4. And in chess, the game begins even before you start playing. For example, I knew that my opponent is going to play e4, and I was looking at his games. Um, it's not easy to complicate with black, so I looked at various options, which openings can I play. And eventually, I came up with an opening which I had never played before, so it would be a surprise, and also which would complicate. The downside of it is that it's very risky, and I could even end up worse and probably be in deep trouble. But the main thing is you have to take some kind of risk if you want to get rewarded. So I played c5, knight f3, e6. So this is already a bit rare in my games, and that's why I decided to go for it. d4, cd4, knight d4. And now I played the move knight c6, which in my opinion I had never played before. So definitely he couldn't have been prepared for this. He played knight c3 and I played a6. I want to play the Taimano Sicilian, but without putting my queen on c7. He took, bishop d3. It's all standard moves, you just develop your pieces. d5, castle, knight f6. And now the main line usually goes playing e5, knight d7, rook e1. And there are a couple of other moves which are supposed to be more popular than what my opponent played. But my opponent was very smart. He picked a line where objectively it's fine for black, but if I don't play the best move, I'll be worse. For example, he played queen f3. I played bishop e7, and now he played the move queen g3. This was his trick. For example, here I played knight h5 and he went back queen f3. And then I again went back knight f6, queen g3. So if I play the best line, it will be an immediate draw with threefold repetition. And to avoid that, I have to take more risks than usual. As my opponent was 2400 and I was 2700, I decided to take that risk. But it was a very smart choice on my opponent's behalf. So I played castle, he played bishop h6, and then I had to go back with my knight to e8, because if I go with knight h5, queen g4 would attack the knight and I cannot play g6 as my f8 rook is hanging. So unfortunately I had to play knight e8, and with this I set up small trap which of course my opponent would not fall into. That is, if you play a random move like let's say rook a d1, you can pause the video if you're watching and try to see how black can gain some material. So the idea is to play bishop h4, attacking the queen. The queen has to stay on the g file because if it moves, I capture the bishop on h6. Queen g4, and now I play the move f5, kicking the queen away again. So ef5, ef5, and now the queen cannot stay on the g file. Queen moves, I capture the bishop on h6, and I win the piece. But it was not a morning game and my opponent was not sleepy, so he found this easily and he went back bishop f4. Now my problem is in this position, how do I develop my pieces? My bishop on c8 is actually very poorly placed. It's blocked by its own pawns, and my knight on e8 is not so active. Whereas his pieces, if you look, they are very well placed, they are all developed. So definitely out of the opening, white has the advantage. But the main thing was that the game is still complicated and it's not easy for him to make moves. This is what I wanted from the game and it worked out just fine. So here I played the move f6, and it's such an ugly move if you think about it. I create some weaknesses on the light squares, but it was still part of my preparation, which is very surprising as this is a very rare line and I have no idea how I managed to predict that my opponent will go here. He played rook a d1, and now I played the move king h8. I remember here my opponent thought for a long time, which gave me some confidence because for him, he has developed most of his pieces. Now he has to take some action and he has to take some decisions which require changing of the dynamic of the position. But my opponent was still not ready. He did not want to commit to any plan, and he just wanted to keep the position stable so that he could make a draw. My opponent wanted to keep the position stable and not make any changes in the position. That's why he played the move bishop c1, just going back with the bishop, not really changing the dynamic of the position. But this gave me some time to develop my pieces back in the game. I played knight d6, and here again he should have brought the rook to e1, but he made another non-committal move, which is king h1. And as you can see from my opponent's strategy, that he wants to just stabilize the position, not take any decision in the center, whether it's playing e5, capturing on d5. He just wants to keep the status quo. And here I came up with a very interesting plan. Engines say that the best move here is to play f5 and to break open the position. I only briefly considered it, but I was attracted to another idea of stabilizing the center. So my main problem in this position is the bishop, and right now I can't really bring it in the game. So I came up with this move knight f7. And you might think, how does this help bringing the bishop in the game? For example, he played rook e1, and now I showed my idea. I played the move d4, attacking the knight. Knight went back to e2, and then I played e5. So now you can see that the bishop is finally coming into the game. Also, I have more space now. My pieces were cramped, but I have f6, e5, d4. And if I've given two moves, let's say if I can play the move c5, stabilize, my bishop comes to e6, I'll be completely better. So one lesson which we can see now is that when you have an advantage, you have to play very, very decisively. And if you don't play decisive, if you don't take immediate action, you allow your opponent a chance to come back in the game. So hence, after d4, knight e2, e5, he realized that if he gives me even more time, I'll be better. He started to attack my center, c3. I played the move c5. Again, I just need one move where I can play a5 or bishop e6 and I will be better. And here, during the game, my opponent was thinking for a long time. I realized what move he wanted to make, and I saw an amazing combination uh, right until the end of the game. So here it goes. He played the move b4, breaking the center. And the problem for me was that if I exchange pieces, there will be too much simplification and I cannot keep the tension to win the game. For example, initially I wanted to take c takes b4, he takes on d4, and then make a move like bishop e6. But he had some counter chances like d5, bring knight takes e5, bishop c4, and there are more exchanges in the game. Although black is still, I would say, slightly preferable, but I'll not go too much into the details. This would have been objectively maybe a better move, but I was attracted with the combination. It starts with taking the pawn on c3, and this of course creates this pin, and my queen is in danger in the x-ray. So my opponent was still not sure what I'm going to do, so he played bishop a6. Probably he thought that, okay, there are going to be mass exchanges, simplification, and it's going to be an easy life. For example, my queen is attacked, so let's say I make a move like queen e8, he takes my bishop, I take his bishop, then maybe he takes on c5, or he takes knight c3, brings the knight to d5, and okay. As you can see in the last few moves, there are so many exchanges. But here, I played a move which is very easy to miss in practical game. which is called the intermediate moves. The moves, or it's the simpler term is in between moves. So in between this combination, I could make this move knight d6, stopping the rook from attacking my queen. Now his bishop is attacked. So okay, he took on c8, and again I played another in between move. The obvious thinking would be to immediately capture back the bishop with the queen or the rook. But here comes the point of my tactic. And also I realized that he was getting low on time, which I tried to exploit. c2. Now it starts to become very complicated. The rook is attacked. For example, if you play the move rook d2, the point was that I can now capture knight takes e4. There is attack on the queen and the rook. If he takes rook takes d8, there is this move knight g3 check, takes back, and then I take the rook, followed by rook comes to d1 with decisive threats. And the same would go for any rook move. Let's say rook goes to d3. I again capture the pawn on e4, queen e3, and again the beauty of chess. There is queen takes d3, queen takes d3, knight f2, and now there is a fork on the king and the queen. And the same would go for rook d5. I would capture again. So basically no rook moves were working for him. So he came up with rook takes d6, taking away my knight. Of course I had to see this. My point was to play queen d6. And in chess in general, two pieces, let's say knight and bishop, or bishop and a bishop for rook, is considered superior than just one rook. Because if you go by the point system, knight is 3 points, bishop is 3 points, and rook is 5 points. So you have one more point. But I have captured one pawn. But the more important thing is my pawn on c2. If there is no pawn on c2, I'm close to lost. But because of this pawn, I create a lot of problems for him. And this is one of the key points I want to emphasize when playing against weaker opposition. You have to create more problems for them to solve. And eventually they will get tired and they will miss something if you create enough problems. So as you could see, right from my knight to f7, I was constantly asking him questions and he had to calculate, calculate, calculate. And right now, after like series of moves, he made a mistake. He played bishop b7, which looks very logical, that you attack the rook. Let's say if I capture this, his idea was bishop d5 and my queen is blocked. Then eventually his queen will come and take the pawn on c2. But again, as usual, there are intermediate moves. Just for the record, I would say that bishop to g4 was a better move. The point was that after I go queen to d1, in future then can be some x-ray, or he can move the rook defending the knight on e2. Now I cannot capture back. So he played bishop b7 in the game and I played queen d1. Now he cannot go rook to g1 because I can easily capture the knight on e2. That's why the bishop was so important. He played the move f3, defending the rook with the queen. And one more attacking principle I would say is momentum. Now, right now I have the initiative, I have the attack, and it's very important not to make slow moves. I have to keep the attack going. And for that, even if I have to sacrifice material, it's more often than not a correct idea. So I took c before. Very important move, because if I had taken rook takes a2, defended the rook, he could have played knight c3, forking my queen and the rook. So slow moves were not going to work. It was more important that I take his bishop. For example, c takes b4. If he captures my rook, now I capture back. I'm a piece down, but you can see all his pieces are stuck. His knight cannot come to c3. His queen is stuck defending. Okay, the bishop can move, but it will not achieve anything and my pawn is going to queen. It's like his pieces, he has army, huge army, but it's completely immobilized. He decided to try to bring back the bishop to d5. He knew that this is a very important piece. And maybe he can come to b3, attack the queen. And as usual, you have to keep the momentum going. I do not want to move my rook from the a file, and I played rook fd8. Again, trying to give my rook for the bishop. He went bishop b3. And here comes the last final trick of the game, which was very important that I find. So right now he is threatening not to capture on d1 because I have 2 support. But he wants to play h4 and king h2, removing the king. So I need to create a threat before that. And I managed to do that with the move bishop c5. I stop his bishop from moving, and as you can see in the game, he played the move h3, if I'm not wrong. I captured the rook, queen takes queen, rook d1. And the point of bishop c5 can be seen now because he would try to play this move bishop d2, for example. But here I have the trick bishop f2, bringing another piece in the attack and attacking the queen. He took the queen. I made another queen, which he captured back. And now rook takes a2. Important move. Funnily enough, he still has that extra piece, but his bishop is trapped. There is no square for the bishop. This bishop cannot move because this knight is hanging. If he moves the knight, there is a fork. There is a double attack here in a way. So his pieces are completely paralyzed, and I think it's just lost. The last few moves were very interesting because there was another trap in the game. He had played this move. Sorry, he had played the move h4 instead of h3, and here he played h5. So in the game, he had not played the move h3 but h4. It doesn't really change anything. He played h5. As I showed, his pieces are completely helpless. Nothing is moving. And here I created a deflection with b3. I'm going to queen, so he had to take. And now I captured the knight. And one more thing which is very, very important in chess is that when you have an advantage, you should go for the kill. You should not give your opponent a chance to hang in there and create more defensive resources, because it's like when an lion is attacking its prey, it directly goes for the throat so that the prey will not survive. So here you have to go for the throat when you are attacking. So king h2, and now there were options of like exchanging my bishop and slowly winning the endgame, but I realized that his bishop on c1 doesn't really have square. I just need to attack it. So if I play rook e1, his bishop comes out, but I couldn't see a way how else to attack this bishop. But I played this move bishop b4, removing its only square of escape. He played some random move bishop f7, rook e1, attacking the bishop. It has no square here. Bishop b2, rook b1, and again the bishop is trapped. Even in endgame, you can see there is this beautiful geometry, and the bishop, which is such a long range piece, is trapped, and he resigned the game. So if I have to just summarize what the game was about, if you're playing low rated opponents, it's sometimes important to take risks which can be rewarded. You have to keep asking them questions, complicate the position, and eventually hope that they cannot find answers to all the questions. And when you have the advantage, you have to go for the throat, keep the momentum, and not let them escape. So I hope you enjoyed this game, and see you in the next one.